The Retirement Café Podcast, episode 28, Rethinking Dementia, Why Society Must Adapt, with Mary Jordan.
Retired or thinking about retirement? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Retirement Café Podcast. In each episode, we bring you an important conversation with insight, tips and knowledge, all designed to help you live a fulfilling and successful life in retirement. Here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner and accredited later life advisor, Justin King.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Retirement Café Podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome Mary Jordan to the show. Now, Mary has spent a lifetime in the caring profession, both on the front line caring for patients and in the medical publishing arena. More recently, Mary has moved into the training and consulting field. She has become a veritable expert in dementia and is here to share her knowledge with us and myself and expertise that she has today. So welcome, Mary, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, Mary, could just for people who may not know you or maybe not come across your books, etc., could you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes, I've had a very varied career, and I think everything I've done has helped me when I'm dealing with dementia. So I started life as a regular army officer, which may sound odd. And then, as you say, I worked in medical publishing, and I actually had to look after my mother-in-law when she had dementia. And that's what got me interested in helping seniors, really, elderly people who needed help.
Okay. And so was that a long time ago, helping with your mother-in-law? Or?
Yeah, that was probably a good 20 years ago. But
Okay.
that's how I got into that area, really.
Sure.
And that's what made me write my first book about caring.
Okay. And so tell me a little bit about then that did you know much about dementia when your mother-in-law got
Absolutely
diagnosed?
nothing, probably no more than any other person in the street knows.
So what was that like? I mean, tell me about that journey then.
That was quite interesting because we never, we couldn't work out what her problem was, if you see what I mean. And one day I went into the public library, pulled a book off the shelf. I can't even remember what it was called now. It was an Australian book. I started reading it and I thought, this is what we've got. This is what we've got to deal with. And that was my first realization of what was wrong with my mother-in-law.
So it wasn't a GP's diagnosis. It was
Absolutely not. She wouldn't go near a doctor. That was part of the problem.
Okay. And so you got some information about your mother. What were your next steps then?
Well, actually, at that stage, I didn't get involved with dementia. I was working in medical publishing, and it was probably a good 10 years later that my husband died, and I needed a part-time job. And one of the jobs I was offered was with Alzheimer's Society. And at that time, I had no idea what I'd be doing or anything, but I got the job. And it all went on from there.
Right.
So, but my personal experience with my mother-in-law, obviously, was at the basis of how I developed an interest.
So tell me, coming back to your mother-in-law, how long did she suffer for? Did she live a long time from your initial diagnosis? Or
hard to tell. You may not know this, but they reckon that it takes 20 years before symptoms of dementia actually show. So you've got dementia for a long time before the symptoms show. From when we realised what was wrong with her, probably 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you and the family cope during that period?
Well, it was quite difficult. My father-in-law had just died. That's when we realised there was a problem with her. And very shortly afterwards, my husband had the first of 3 strokes. So it was myself and my eldest son who really did the hands-on looking after.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And so when you turned up at the Alzheimer's Society with all this knowledge, of course, with first-hand knowledge, what did you do there?
Well, I was called a Dementia Support Worker, and they later changed the term to Dementia Navigator. Basically, we work to support people with dementia and their carers with advice and support, not hands-on care, but telling people where they could go to get help, to get advice and things like that. And it was a very, very focused kind of care, in that you got to know somebody and you stayed with them for their whole journey from when they were diagnosed until they died, really. So
Right.
you were with the family, helping them and supporting them all that time. It was a wonderful job, to be honest.
Good. And how long did you do that for?
10 years.
Wow. Okay, so you got a lot of experience there.
Hopefully, yes.
And then of course you started writing about it.
Yes, because I'd already written the book following caring for my mother-in-law called The Essential Carer's Guide.
Right.
And then I wrote the Essential Guide to Avoiding Dementia,
Right.
which we'd all like to do.
Yes.
The Essential Carer's Guide to Dementia.
Yes.
And the most recent book I've written with Noel Collins is The D Word.
Yes, this is Rethinking Dementia.
Yes.
So tell
That's
me,
right.
tell me, a little synopsis of that. Then, I've got a copy, but for people who haven't read it, what was your main message in that with Dr. Noel Collins?
I think the message we wanted to get over to people was that dementia wouldn't be so difficult if society sort of dealt with it better. Society tends to put people, oh dear, you've got dementia, let's ignore you, more or less. Let's put you away somewhere and just try not to think about it too much because you're cuckoo. That's how society acts. And Noel and I felt that if people were made to continue to feel part of society, and the society was more gentle towards them, that people would live a happier life.
Yes, absolutely. And so, what steps can people make to, someone like the personal experience that you've had, with your obviously wife now, but obviously with your huge experience. Let's say that in the family that they've just come across someone who one of their loved ones has got diagnosed with dementia. What's your advice at that point? Because I mean that must be well, not only for the person who's been diagnosed, but also for the rest of the family. Unless they've got a lot of experience, quite a frightening place.
Yeah, I think a lot of people find it a devastating diagnosis. I mean, people do describe it as a fate worse than death. That's how people see it. What Noel and I were trying to convey that it's not. Right. That you still continue to live, you're still yourself. And if society were, as I say, gentler towards you, you'd be able to function and continue in society and have an enjoyable life.
So what would you like to see society doing now with people diagnosed with dementia? If we were chatting, I don't know, let's say we were chatting in 5 years' time, what would you have liked to have changed or seen the way society now works?
I think I've said in the book, I think I'd like society in general to understand that dementia might come to any of us, might be you, might be me. Yeah. In fact, the odds are that it will be one of us or both of us. Right. And that how would we like to be avoided and to be shunned and to be stuck in in a day sentence? Not that I've got anything against day sentences, but, put away and considered to be not worth anything in society. So I suppose I would like a lot of practical changes in things like street signage and stuff like that, which would make it easier for people with dementia to get about and understand where they are.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see a change in things like clubs. I did issue a challenge in the book to Rotary clubs, WIs, anything like that, to people to actually accept people with dementia, not decide that they can no longer belong, and just help them out as long as they can be helped to continue to enjoy the things they've enjoyed always.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's through kind of skills and training and getting your message out there that would make it not such a difficult thing for people to contend with and not to view it with such fear.
Yes. In fact, the nicest thing somebody said to me after they'd read the D Word was they actually said, it's made me no longer so afraid of dementia. I actually see it now as more part of life. Yeah. And, I can accept it better. And I thought that was probably the nicest thing somebody said about the book.
Yeah, good. Brilliant. Tell me about, you founded Adapt Dementia. Can you tell me more about that?
Yes, I worked for Alzheimer's Society, as I told you, for quite a while. Very good organisation, and at the time was almost the only source of help that people had when I joined. Alzheimer's Society have now moved more into the research area and have dropped a lot of their hands-on services to people, and that made me think, no, I want to be helping people now. Research is very important, I'm not decrying that, but I wanted to help people who were dealing with dementia now. So I founded my own company to do this hands-on helping.
Right. Do people contact you for help? I mean, is it a nationwide organisation? How does it work?
Yeah, I mostly work locally within Surrey, Hampshire, Sussex borders,
Right.
But because of technology, really, I can work nationally, and I do have clients in various areas of the country who I support really by telephone,
right,
or something like we're doing now. So I can help people in lots of different ways. And on the website we have web tutorials for people, carers, home carers, people in the community, so that they've got that hands-on kind of care.
Brilliant.
The other thing I do, which is in sort of short supply, is I run cognitive stimulation courses for people with dementia.
Okay.
Cognitive stimulation therapy is the only therapy recommended by NICE for dementia. It's not a drug. It's a group therapy.
Okay.
And it's in short supply, really, because there just aren't enough people to deliver it.
So tell me a little bit more about that. What does it involve?
Involves people in small groups, about 10 people, people with dementia, and it's very specific. Everything we do, although it's a social group and it allows people to talk and relax and feel themselves, each activity we do is supposed to stimulate a different area of the brain.
Right.
So it's a very specific therapy.
Okay. And is that's kind of available privately, is it, or is it?
Well, I deliver it privately. Mm-hmm. In some areas, it is available via the National Health Service and Social Services, but there's not enough of it. There aren't enough people to deliver it, really.
Okay. And if people wanted to go and get trained in facilitating that type of work, they could approach you, presumably.
Yes, they could. I do actually train people to deliver it.
Yeah. I can imagine this is a service that's going to be needed more and more.
It's a very popular service, with the people with dementia themselves, because they just enjoy it.
Yeah. I know that we've had previous guests as one of the researchers at Bournemouth University, and they've got a specialist dementia centre there. They've run quite a few different events. One especially with people with dementia, and they would be playing video games and arcade games, golfing games and driving games and tennis games, those types of things. So they could still enjoy the pastimes that they did before, without obviously maybe taking the car out on the road
in a virtual way.
And so maybe as I say, the adaptation of modern technology could be a huge benefit to people with suffering.
Yeah, I think modern technology does have a role to play, but I think what people with dementia need is another person. I know it sounds really odd. People with dementia, it's very difficult for them to live on their own. And even with technological help, it would be very difficult for them. They need somebody to show them how to work the technology. So it's really about socialising. It's about people need people.
Okay. Well, that's those are wise words. So, if just bringing this to a close, if you had to leave our listeners with one thought or piece of advice on the topic of dementia, what would that be?
I would say to people, accept support when it's offered to you. Very few people want to do that. Everyone wants to manage. I don't want to bother people. I can manage. And when people are first diagnosed, you can manage. But dementia is a progressive disease. And what's happening now is not what's going to happen later. I would say to people, accept support, any support that's offered you.
And probably earlier the better, because I suppose if you can plan, and I suppose it's not inevitable, of course, of how fast your decline may be.
Everybody's different,
and therefore, whilst you still have possibly, if you've only recently been diagnosed, and that diagnosis has come about relatively early, I hope. Then of course you can probably make more plans and have more control over those plans at that point than you could later on.
Absolutely right. So accept support to make those sort of plans as early as you can. I find that people who accept support earlier do better, really. They manage longer.
Okay. So, right, before we go, can you explain to our listeners how they can find out more about your books and Adapt Dementia and get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Certainly. Adapt Dementia has its own website. That's adaptdementia.com, and the contact's on there. And I have my own website with all my books listed, which is maryjordan.co.uk. All the books are on there, and also contact details. So, and the phone numbers, everything people need to contact me.
Great. Well, I'm sure people will be reaching out to you with the huge amount of knowledge you have on this subject from a very frightening place. I'm sure. I can't even imagine that if one of my relatives suddenly got that diagnosis. I'm sure I'd be reaching out to you myself. So thank you for joining us this morning. It's been really fascinating chatting to you. And once again, Mary Jordan, thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin.
If you've enjoyed this conversation with Mary, you may like to listen to a previous podcast. I think it was episode number 5 on the topic of dementia. Head to your podcast player or to our website, theretirementcafe.co.uk. Search for episode number 5. It's with Dr. Ben Hicks. Now, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about a live Retirement Café event we're holding at the beautiful Italian villa at Compton Acres, which is near Poole in Dorset on the 5th of July. If you're confused about inheritance tax rules and would like to feel more informed about steps you can take to reduce your inheritance tax bill, then head to our website, theretirementcafe.co.uk, to find out more and register for free. You can ask your questions directly to myself and to Chartered Tax Advisor and Step Solicitor Kurt Lee of Leicester Aldridge Solicitors, all over coffee and cake. So until next time, this is Justin King helping you feel more informed in your retirement.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Café Podcast with Justin King. To find out more, you can find us online at theretirementcafe.co.uk.